bullshit. No bullshit. No bullshit.
Oh my, let's just breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
No bullshit.
Hey, y'all, what's going on?
Hey, Charlie.
Oh, it works. Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Can the doctor hear me? Doc, can you hear me?
He's muted. There he is.
He should hear you now.
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. How does it feel? Dr. Nikolai Vitti, the superintendent of Detroit Public School Community District. How's the technology feel?
The technology for all of us right now, it feels good.
Yeah, see, we're going to get to that with the issues your kids are facing, the kids around the state. But let me do a little business first, okay? And then we'll come right back to you. Thanks for jumping in. Listen, everybody. You can't work. That's a big deal. Everybody's flipping out. Let me remind you of something. ADR Associates has construction ground to a halt for you. Not if you're working with ADR. Their clients have had permits issued this week. Visual inspections have been conducted. Crews are working safely in full compliance with the law. Employees are getting paid. Things are getting built. So don't lay down. Get things done legally and with full respect for the emergency corona measures. ADR Consultants, 248-318-9424. I'm not joking. This is people we deal with, get things done right. Now you're going to find out. Get the job done right, on time, on budget, right now. Call Barry Allen Tuck, 248-318-9424. Honest, ethical, smart. ADR Consultants, get to work. 248-318-9424. And here's a cool one, guys. You got that picture from the Washington Post, Mark?
Yep, we have it.
Pull that up. If you're listening, you're not going to see it, but I'll tell you what it is. This is the front page today, Friday, of the Washington Post, talking about all the people being laid off across America, the most since the Great Depression. I can't see the picture, but is it up?
It's up, yep.
Look at that thing, man. That's the center of Detroit. See how beautifully that's lit?
Yeah.
See that thing? I painted that. Look at how well that's lit. So that is the heart and soul of Detroit.
It's American.
Right now they're catering to cops. They're going to be delivering meals to the front lines. They will cater for you. Just go to AmericanConeyIsland.com and call the Coney Island hotline. If you want a Coney kit delivered to your door, go to AmericanConeyIsland.com, the heart and soul of Detroit. All right. Boom. Dr. Nikolai Vitti, how are you, brother?
Good.
You got to be dying. This is just unprecedented. Let me just start with this. You're seeing how poor Michigan's biggest city really is. I think the skin's been pulled off the skeleton. What are you seeing?
Well, anyone that knows the city knows that we've been dealing with historic injustice related to race and socioeconomic issues related to healthcare, education, employment. And again, anyone who knows the city knows that. I think when we are dealing with this kind of crisis, those issues become clear for the outside eye and in the outside world. And that's what you're seeing with the national conversation, a bit with the state conversation. But anyone that knows the city, works in the city, is true to the city, knows that these issues have always been here. But in a crisis like this, there's a different level of conversation. There's a different level of awareness. But this is nothing new. I was asked the other day, what would you like people to know or do differently because of this crisis? And what I said was, there's been a number of crises in this country, for Katrina, for example, where we knew we had an opportunity to learn from our mistake, historic mistakes, current mistakes linked to race and class. And as a nation, we still don't do what we need to do from an investment point of view to prevent those kind of tragedies from happening into the future. And I think COVID-19 is going to be another example in the country's history, in our state's history, in our city's history. We're going to look back on this and say, what are we going to do? What could we have done differently moving forward to not be as prepared to deal with a crisis like this? And it's going to be up to national and state leadership and city leadership to prevent something like this from having the impact that it had. I'm skeptical and cynical based on the history of our country that we will put in the right systems, processes, make the right investments to prevent something like this from happening again. Because unfortunately, we know the history of race and socioeconomics in this country. But that's what I'd say to your question.
And so, Dr. Vitti, where would that leave us? I mean, and do you have the opportunity to make a contribution to help change the discussion? You came in on the platform of change, and I think that you've done a great job with trying to initiate change, changing the perception, the support, the engagement at DPSCD. But where does that leave us if, in fact, nothing has changed and your voice isn't invited to help redefine who we are and what we do differently?
Yeah, and every time I have that chance on the national level, state level, city level, I say what I just said related to Charlie's question. And I'll continue to say the same thing in as far as lifting up the inequities linked to race and socioeconomic background. But from an education point of view, I'm using this opportunity to try to rally the business community, for example, and finally investing in the digital divide issue, which I'm optimistic that we will see a significant investment in providing every family with a tablet and internet access for the next 6 months. So I can't say that that's confirmed, but I can say that people are listening. There's energy around the issue, and that could be one issue that we at least make some progress on as it relates to the digital divide from an educational point of view. But those tablets and internet access can also address other resource issues that families have in the city because they lack the device or the internet access. So that's something I'm trying to do through the school system. But bigger picture, we have to talk about obviously secure jobs with livable wages, healthcare that's consistent. We have to talk about access to the right job preparedness. We have to talk about strengthening the education system to eliminate the generational challenges that exist with academics. It's not, all of this is interrelated, as you know, the healthcare, employment, and education. And, when you've had an education system run by the state, essentially run to the ground without any kind of vision of what children are capable of doing through a traditional public school system, you're left with a generation of children that can't compete globally, nevertheless, statewide throughout this country, because they haven't been provided the right skills and experiences academically. But in the last 3 years, I think we have made a difference. We are showing that the school system can not only be normal, but can be higher performing. Every one of our indicators was moving in the right direction, from attendance to overall enrollment. Student achievement was improved, defined by state and national test scores, reducing vacancy rates, increasing teacher pay. Everything was moving in the right direction. And I think with more time, we're going to continue to show that improvement.
Looking towards the future, like you're talking about, to prepare for the next problem is slightly abstract. What about the here and now, right now? For people that don't know, what percentage of students do not have internet access? And even more so, what percent of students maybe not participating in distance learning right now?
Right. So I would say most of our families have at least some kind of device defined by an iPhone, an Android, a laptop, a desktop. The challenge is the depth of their internet access. So they don't have the data plans to download PDFs. They don't have the data plans to stay online for long periods of time, to complete assignments or listen to a taped video recording. That's the challenge. But to your other question, We do have online tools now that students can use, and only about 10% of them are using them at the K-8 level. So that defines the challenge right now.
What'd you just say?
Wow.
Only 10%. Only 10% of, I would say, only 10%. So 4,000 of 40,000 students are consistently using the online.
Look at that.
That are available since March 12th.
This is what I know, Nick. A lot of kids don't have food. You had to deal with that first. Right? Just food.
We're providing 100,000 meals a week.
100,000 meals a week.
100,000 meals a week.
Okay, now I know, because I love the people that you represent, the teachers and the therapists and everything you're trying to do. When you try to get a hold of families, the phone number's changed. It's gone. It's shut off. It's swapped to someone. You can't even do that. The internet, as you say, this city was supposed to be wired. Remember that? Mm-hmm. There was going to be internet on top of the light poles. That disappeared. Answer me this question. For the people listening, say, in Ferndale or in Escanaba, dude, why should I care? I'm worried about my own kid. Why am I worried about the kids of Detroit?
Well, I mean, one way to answer that question is we should care about all of our kids, regardless of what zip code, race, class. I mean, we're human beings, and we should think about the collective good. That's what I hope we can all strive for. But if we're cynical and we only care about ourselves, then at the minimum, if we don't take care of Detroit kids, at some point, those same kids that aren't taken care of will have a burden on you economically in some way or the other, because they can't be employed, because they're incarcerated, because of crime. Hopefully we don't have to go to the cynical level, but and we can talk about what is right at a human level.
Right.
If you can't get there, then just be cynically driven to realize that there's a negative impact on your life economically when you don't take care of other people's children.
Because we're living in a time where the divide is going to be exponentially greater. If you leave people in the dark, our kids what society are we going to leave? That's the way I look at it.
And at the end of the day, our kids, I believe, are actually more talented than other kids throughout the country. Our kids are persistent. Our kids are entrepreneurs. They're problem solvers. They're thinkers. If they can get through what they get through every day, and still go to school and still focus, then they're overcoming obstacles that the average kid in suburban America isn't actually going through. So if they can get through all that and still at least compete, imagine what they could do if you actually gave them the stability that other kids throughout the country have. And that's why we have some of the exceptional kids that end up doing great things, but they end up being the exception, not the rule. And imagine how many more kids that are capable of providing greatness to this country if they're given the equal opportunity. And that's just not what is given in this country.
Dr. Vitti, let me ask you, because for decades, Detroit Public Schools has been burdened with a bad reputation. Changing the perception and making people receptive to the changes and the accomplishments that have been realized under your leadership. What has that been like? I mean, because people want to hold on to the old DPS. They don't want to see the accomplishments, the changes, the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's real. The best thing that I always say is just come to our schools. Forget about what you've heard, forget about what you think. Just visit our schools, any of our schools, and you'll walk through the hallways and you're going to see bell-to-bell instruction. You're going to see curriculum that is at grade level, curriculum that is nationally recognized as being at grade level. You're going to see students actually reading books and articles in class and discussing them in Socratic circles. Do we have work to do? Absolutely. But teaching and learning is happening in our buildings. There's systems and processes to work with students that are below grade level. We're starting to use more technology in the classroom. Our schools are looking normal. And I know that may sound odd to other people, but when the system was run into the ground, a lot of our systems weren't operating normally. And when not only are we at normal, but there are classrooms, there are individual schools that are starting to go above normal. And we have schools that are competing above the district average and, more importantly, the state average. We have about 10 schools that are outperforming the state average in reading and math, for example. And these are not just our exam and application schools. So as people reorientate themselves to our schools, visit, walk through, they're going to see things that they hadn't seen before. Music and art in every school, PE established in every school. You know, those things were all gutted under emergency management that we're bringing back.
Counseling.
It's correct.
Huge. It's huge. Now, you brought up the question.
Social worker at every school.
See, look at that. That's normal.
Right.
It's funny. Normal's an achievement. But now it begs the question. I'm looking at the state as a whole. So for everybody around this state, collectively, our achievement level has fallen. And that's beyond race. That's beyond socioeconomic status. Right. It's across the board. So why is it, Nick? Is it we can blame charter schools, family participation, money? I think, is it the tests, the standardized tests and the curriculum keep shifting to a test that keeps shifting? Why are we failing?
Well, I think what happened in Michigan, and again, this isn't real. I'm not trying to have a partisan conversation.
No, come on.
But reality is we've had governors, mainly Republican governors, that were not visionary, were not even supportive of traditional K-12 education. They shifted funding. They shifted priority to choice, initiated choice in this state without guardrails, without accountability. 80% of our charter schools are for profit, and it shifted resources. It shifted focus in a non-research based way. And we had complete anarchy. We had the Wild West as far as education is concerned. We turned our poorest, most vulnerable children into guinea pigs. And we set up children and families and communities for failure out of ideological politics. Whereas other states invested in teachers, they invested in professional development, they invested in teacher salaries, they invested in wraparound services, and achievement continued to improve. Our state went backwards because we
I hate to say it though, but when you look at our teachers statewide, and I believe teachers should be paid more. Don't get me wrong there, but they're in the top 11 in terms of payment. And when you put in standard of living, cost of living, Michigan teachers rank number 1. I think they should be paid more. So save me the letters. But something else also happened. Besides, we drained the school systems. There's no doubt about that. The Lotto was supposed to put more money into the system, not redirect the money that was already into the system. If I was governor, I'd want to know what caused all of our boats, not just Detroit, but Ferndale and, the rural areas. What fucking happened?
It's always, I always say this, as a former teacher, principal, principal leader, superintendent, it's always about, for every degree of accountability, there has to be a degree of support. Every degree of support, there has to be a degree of accountability. And what the state didn't figure out, like other states did, Massachusetts, for example, being one, is as you invest in teacher salaries, you have to invest in accountability. You have to invest in professional development. And standardized testing isn't the end all. It can be one of many measures that's used, but how students are performing does matter. How are you highlighting success, and how are you defining struggling schools, but supporting them to get better? The state really hasn't had a vision to do that in over a decade. Its philosophy of change was, we need more charters, we need more choice. But in the meantime, we weren't investing in professional development. We weren't teaching teachers really how to teach reading. We weren't investing in students with special needs. we weren't doing all the things that we know leads to raising student achievement. We were just saying, if you're unhappy with your school, go to a charter or or go to another school district that may be perceived to be more higher performing. That's not that in and of itself isn't going to lead to higher improvement.
The charters don't do any better. We know that. So, which leads to the question: where did your kids go to school?
So my kids go to DPSCD, and then some of my other kids go to Catholic schools. It's a combination of the two.
You went to Catholic school.
All my kids, though, have been in DPSCD. I have students that have IEPs, and so they need more support than my other students. So
I read that. So you grew up in Dearborn, right?
Correct. Yep.
My man. So your mom
Dearborn and Inkster.
In Inkster. It's my side of town, brother.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Cherry Hill,
Joy Road and Wayne Road, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Right there.
My grandfather had a pizzeria right on Wayne Road off Telegraph. Carlos.
Yeah. And I'm sure we probably jumped one of your delivery guys. So your mom dropped out of high school when she was pregnant with a kid.
That's right.
And she's a hairdresser.
That's right.
You're from regular stuff. So you're not some egghead.
No. My immigrants worked at the Rouge plant. That's my history. That's why I'm here.
So that's why you believe in, like, you're from where I'm from, and that's what you're about. So you had dyslexia.
Yep, still dyslexic. Yep. 2 of my kids are dyslexic as well.
So how does a guy graduate Harvard? Wait, what is dyslexia anyway?
So dyslexia is really just, it's a neurological delay issue in the brain, nothing to do with intelligence, but dyslexic often struggle with basic math, basic reading, difficulty connecting sounds with letters. So this is why the reading process is more challenging. Math, simple math is more challenging, but once you're provided with the right kind of intervention, you can do with what any other student does. The problem is often we're not providing the right intervention for students to do that.
So I thought it was you mixed up letters.
Yeah, it's some of that, but it's more complicated than that. But yeah, most people know it as switching letters, which makes the reading and math process difficult.
Well, look, go ahead, Karen, and I got one.
Yeah, I know. And because I know he's got a hard stop and we want to respect your time. But Dr. Vitti, if there is one thing that you could ask from the community, those people that are watching Facebook Live and Charlie's hundreds of thousands of people that listen to the podcast, what's the one thing that we as the community can do to help contribute to your success and the success of the students in DPSCD?
Well, one, I would say highlight the improvement that we're making and encourage people to go out to schools and see the actual work. I can say a lot and people are beginning to trust me and know our work. But really what matters is what you see in our classroom and what you see in our schools. And I would just say, regardless of where you're at with your level of skepticism, go to our schools and see the work that's happening. And then, talk to our employees. Our employees are saying that we're doing things differently and better, that they feel supported. They feel like the district is advocating for them, problem solving with them, but also holding them accountable. And then the last thing I would say is come to me directly when there's a problem and there's an issue. I don't run. I don't hide. I don't send someone else to talk for me. So I'm far from perfect. I'm going to make mistakes as a leader, but I think people know where my heart is. They know what I'm about, and they know I'm here for the right reasons. So when I make a mistake or I misstep, then call me out, hold me accountable, and allow me to explain what we're doing, why we're doing, and what we're going to do differently to solve the problem. All
right, Nick. So what you said was LeDuff can come in and observe the schools. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So all that bureaucracy below you that's going to get in the way, the man said I could do it. Now, let me ask you this. I know some people are listening, but some are watching. I'm holding up a sign for the doctor. What does that say, Nick?
Stop.
Okay, you're not dyslexic. Does that say POTS to you?
It took a lot of intervention to be able. So I'll tell you this, Charlie. You asked how did I get to Harvard? Do you know that I took the GRE, which you probably know it's the equivalent of the SAT, after I was done with college. I was an athlete, so that was my ticket to college. And I took the GRE, was in about the 50th percentile, and I knew I wouldn't get into the graduate schools that I wanted to get into. So I took 2 full summers. I was a teacher. And in the summers, I studied for the GRE. And then I ended up taking it 3 years later and was in the 99th percentile. And that's how I got into Harvard. It was just work. It was the grittiness, hard work that I saw with my family. And then I made it happen. But that's how I ended up getting into Harvard.
I used to live near Harvard in Boston.
I didn't like Boston and I didn't like Massachusetts much, but.
Oh, look at that. That's the news you just made. I didn't either. Well, I used to live there till the cop told me to move my van. So that's what I'm doing here. Let me just tell the kids and the parents, the superintendent, Dr. Vitti, was very tardy for this show. And we're going to need a note from your hairdressing mother because you don't just get away with it. So anyway, Doc, thank you. We'll be in touch. Keep doing the good work. And here's the sign again. POTS. It's time does POTS.
Thanks, Dr. Vitti.
All right, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
See you, brother. Thank you for the time. Yeah, they are making progress there. They're making, the numbers are going up.
Well, they are, Charlie. But like I asked Dr. Vitti, I think a lot of times people are just so hell-bent on holding on to what DPS used to be that they're not receptive to any of the changes. When Dr. Vitti first came in, I saw a different approach that he was taking. It wasn't a political approach. It wasn't a self-serving approach. I like Dr. Vitti. I like who he is. I like what he brings to the table. Other than being late, I'm on the team.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. So I mean, right.
He said there's work to be done, and I mean,
exactly.
you got to respect that.
I'm going in there.
I want to go too, Charlie.
Okay, then we'll go. Okay, we'll send you in.
Let's
correspondent. Okay, now I want to. Where's my sheet here? All right, look, we got Jordan Sheridan coming in. He and his colleague wrote a big piece in Vice about Flint. They did a 1.5 years look at what's going on. We'll have him on in a moment, but let me just remind everybody, Luke Nowacki. Remember what he's saying. I mean, Luke and I have a lot of philosophical discussions about wealth, about how the economy is going to restart. Remember when everybody was leaving the market, he said, be calm. The market is now at a level that just 2 years ago was a record. Yep. I'm not sure what the economy is doing, but if you're trying to figure out where you're going with your personal and investments, your pension funds, your small town banks, call Luke Nowacki, Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748 for rational financial advice. We're going to come out of this and we're going to have to pick up these pieces. You didn't get your PPP loan. I didn't get it. The bank screwed me. I didn't get any loan.
I didn't ask for one, but still.
Right. So what comes next? Exactly. Right now, everybody realizes it's a little bit more difficult than gambling on a stock. Luke Nowacki, 248-663-4748 for what fits you. And always remember, securities and investment advisory services of other rules, member FN, it's with BC, well, that's names and separately, and then market name, product, service reference here, and independent umbrella. So he says, Inc. I trust Luke. A lot of people do. He cares about big people and the small people and the middle people. Rational advice. Hey, Jordan. Can you hear me, bro?
I need to unmute him. Hang on.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. There he is.
Hey, Jordan, what's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's, for sure, dude. Let me do this. What happened? Okay. Go ahead. Jordan, tell us what popped yesterday. Instead of, it was a very big and in-depth piece about Flint. You didn't quit on it.
Yeah, so my partner Jen and I have been digging for God knows how long, probably over a year at this point. And we broke that Governor Rick Snyder was warned a year before the Flint water switch in person in a briefing about the bacterial risks of the Flint River being used as a water source, the risks of carcinogens, the TTHMs. He was warned a year before the water switch, allowed it to proceed anyway. We also learned that in October 2014, 6 months after the water switch, that's when he first became aware of the deadly Legionella outbreak. He told Congress he became aware in January 2016, which would be 16 months later. We also found out that his, I guess you could say, right-hand man, Rich Baird, kind of described to us as his enforcer, was
Dick.
Going around.
We call him Dick around here.
Okay. Was going around Flint, essentially offering residents, very loud and sick residents, some of whom were getting media attention, essentially special deals. It's been described to us as payoffs in exchange for them, quieting down, so to speak. Some of those deals included medical treatment. Some of those deals included expanded Medicaid. We also learned that in that critical October 2014 period, 6 months after the water switch, there was a whistleblower inside the Snyder administration, his environmental advisor and lawyer, Valerie Brader. She had emailed Dennis Muchmore, the chief of staff, other top officials, basically waving, the blinking red lights. We got to get Flint off of the Flint River. She was then passed to Richard Baird and Darnell Early, the emergency manager. They had a conference call where Ms. Brader was basically told, we can't switch back. It's too much money. That part was public. What we learned was after that conference call, Rich Baird basically told her, don't ever send another bleeping email like that again, threatened her and silenced her, essentially. And he actually lied about that under oath, which is the other part. Baird, Muchmore, and Andy Dillon were all secretly subpoenaed by former special prosecutor Todd Flood. They were brought in for investigative subpoena interviews, which was not known to the public. And our reporting indicates that Governor Snyder, they were building a case. The former prosecutors were building a case, kind of old school, start from the bottom, work your way up.
Well, say it again. Okay, so now now that you got it out, we're going to talk regular for regular people, right? Then we'll post this on our website, okay? Right. No Bullshit News Hour, nobsnewshour.com. In short, the governor knew well before he said he knew.
Correct.
Right? Number two, his inner circle knew.
Correct.
Number three, they've been deposed and you got your hands on what they said under oath behind closed doors.
Okay, correct.
It reveals to you that they knew.
Yes.
That the new prosecution team that dropped all the charges and started over, is aware that they were building a RICO case, a financial fraud case, correct?
Yes. And Attorney General Nessel publicly in an interview said she never heard of any KWA charges before her time, which was provably false. I mean, it's
say that again. What do you mean KWA and provably false and financial charges?
Attorney General Dana Nessel went on Michigan radio, I believe in March of 2019, in response to a prosecutor that was fired, Noah Hall. Noah Hall was criticizing Attorney General Nessel, so she went on Michigan radio to respond to that. She said in that interview, 3 years, and I've never seen any charges related to the KWA pipeline. The interviewer didn't press back, but that just wasn't true. Darnell Early was charged. Gerald Ambrose was charged for false pretenses related to the KWA bond deal, which our reporting there's been reporting about the KWA bond deal, but our reporting moved it further that essentially that's why they did not switch Flint back to Detroit, because if they did, Flint would be on the hook both to pay Detroit and for these $100 million worth of KWA bonds.
Let's do this again because it gets confusing for people. When Flint couldn't borrow any money, right? So they came up with a pretense, a reason to borrow money, which was there was a pit of sludge that needed to be cleaned up. Wouldn't take that much money, but they were able to come up with nearly $100 million, which they diverted to this new pipeline deal. And within that new deal was you have to drink from the Flint River and you may not leave the Flint River. Is this correct?
Yes. Flint was handcuffed as part of that deal. You had to use the Flint River while KWA was under construction.
And if you left the Flint River knowing it was poison, what would be the penalty?
Somebody had to pay the bonds and the banks, so that was the penalty. Flint would still be on the hook for those KWA bonds if they left, if they went back to using Detroit water.
And if they brought suit today on the false pretenses, right, of that switch in the Flint River, the state would still be on the hook for that $100 million, $200 million, correct?
Correct, because the state signed off on that administrative consent order.
So in your reporting, is there any drive, Democrat, Republican, in this state to get that justice, to blow up that deal, to bring the money people to court, the people that arranged it? Is there any interest in blowing up this bond deal?
Well, can't get in Attorney General Nessel's head, but what I have been told by sources familiar with the criminal investigation, the state's liability would almost double if that KWA bond deal advanced in criminal court, because you're talking angry bondholders wanting their money back. You're talking Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, the big boys. So yes, there's a conflict of interest here, Charlie, because state of Michigan, who is prosecuting the Flint water criminal investigation, is also the same state that would have to pay the bill if those bonds, if it advanced in criminal court. Right now, maybe Flint gets a settlement for $200, $300 million if they're lucky. If that KWA bond deal went forward, sources told me, you're looking closer to 700 million, possibly even $1 billion.
Whoa.
So yes, there was definitely a vested interest. And also, Attorney General Nessel's office has never really gave a substantive explanation. Why did you have to drop all of these charges? If there were flaws, I don't know, Todd Flood, I don't know if there were flaws, but if there were flaws in that prosecution team, common sense here, why would you have to drop 8 charges? And how flawed could they have been if charges, 2 judges moved Nick Lyon and Eden Wells over to face jury trials?
Let me go like this for the listener and the viewer. The 2 people you just mentioned, right, Wells and Lyon, were the top health officials in the Snyder cabinet. They were charged with manslaughter, and it took a year for their preliminary exam, which normally takes a day or 2, right? Cost millions of dollars, and a judge said of Lyon that he's corrupt.
Correct.
So what happens in a week from today, Jordan?
Yeah, I'm baffled, Charlie, because before I came on, the Attorney General's office issued a statement. They didn't mention my report, but I assume that's why they did.
Or mine.
Yeah, they say there's some confusion about the statute of limitations. I've read Michigan law. The statute of limitations for felony misconduct in office charges is 6 years. Next week is the 6-year anniversary. Doesn't mean
Flint switched over to the Flint River.
Correct. So it doesn't mean they can't press other charges like manslaughter, but for felony misconduct in office, which several top officials were charged with and then dismissed, it's next week. And State Senator Jim Ananek, another state senator, have tried to extend that deadline. So I don't really know what they're talking about. That next week is not the statute of limitations. Everything that I've seen, it is the statute of limitations.
Well, don't forget this. I think you would know. Some people from Flint, they listen to the show. Thanks for being in Flint. When Dana Nessel and Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy went to Flint to explain why they did this, which to me was a political move, they said, we're up against the statute of limitations here. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter. But for the RICO, the racketeering case, the financial case, I think you can pretty much look at this thing as being dead. There will be, did you hear this? This is what I'm hearing. They'll probably bring back the manslaughter charges. There might be some misdemeanor charges for Baird and Snyder in terms of dereliction of duty or misconduct. But I don't think you're seeing heavy felony charges coming. So what we'll have is a big PR balloon. I've talked to some reporters that cover this. They think Snyder being charged in any way is a big deal. But to me, it's not that big of a deal. What do you think?
Well, here's the bigger deal. As far as I can tell, Attorney General Dana Nessel, who said they say she's not involved in the criminal side, so give that for what you want. Everything I've reported, they've been sitting on for over a year. They've had this information for over a year. They fired investigators, they fired prosecutors, they dropped charges. and they've had this information for over a year. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if they have enough evidence for manslaughter against Snyder or Baird or misconduct or what they have evidence for. But what I do know is they've had this information for over a year and they haven't charged anyone. They have dropped the charges. So, people could decide what that means to them. But as far as I can tell, there is evidence here that Governor Snyder was warned before the water was switched and he allowed it to proceed anyway.
Absolutely.
And there's evidence that he lied in front of Congress and lied to the people of Flint. So I think that would, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me there's arguments that can be made that rises above misdemeanors. You also have, Governor Snyder's basically lieutenant going around Flint, paying people off. So if Governor Snyder didn't know about that, then you have to get into, was that negligent?
Well, maybe it's coming. I don't know. But the biggest one is the financial issue here. Because yes or no, this isn't just Republicans. It was the Democrats up there too, right? It was the contractors. It was Democrats, Republicans, trade unions, and contractors. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so what's to stop them from doing it again?
Exactly. I mean, the bottom line is there's been plenty of reporting out there, but, Governor Snyder didn't hide the fact that he wanted to privatize everything in Michigan, including the water. The way to do that was to break up the Detroit water and sewage pipeline, which Flint had been getting its water from. Flint was Detroit's biggest customer. So that's where the KWA comes in. They created a completely identical, duplicative, parallel pipeline to the existing Detroit pipeline. From everyone in the know I've talked to, it was completely unnecessary. Detroit basically cut its rate to Flint in half, and they still went to the KWA. A lot of banks have made money. A lot of wealthy investors have made money. A lot of contractors have made money. And a lot of this water was not even meant to go to Flint. It's raw water that you got, for food processing, for agriculture, for fracking. So right. That is the big, I think you're correct, that the big, it's been reported on a little bit, but what people around the country don't realize is this was a privatization scheme gone terribly wrong. And everything I could see there, Andy Arena, Todd Flood, others were building. Andy Arena went public and he said, before I got fired, 6 months later, 6 months into the future, there were going to be more financial charges.
He said it on this show, man. And what he also said was the new administration never bothered to have me in for a debriefing.
Yep.
That's the guy that took out Trafficant in Ohio and Kilpatrick in Detroit and ran the FBI's bureau in New York City.
Yep.
And you didn't ask him anything? It's bullshit. Mark, what do you want to ask?
Well, I wanted to go back to the whole, the story that you wrote for Vice.com, Jordan. You start with kind of I would say it's a bombshell that said Snyder talked to Mayor Weaver about having Elijah Cummings back off on the investigation because it seems like he lied to Congress about that. Fortunately, Cummings died. Where does that stand now with Congress? Is there any interest in what's going on, picking up where Cummings was?
You're asking if Congress has interest in justice for poor people?
Well, one member did at one time, it seems.
And where's the FBI?
Yeah, from my reporting, because obviously Cummings has passed away, but it has not been a high priority of the Oversight Committee since his passing. What I do know is Governor Snyder was not so worried when Republicans controlled Congress, but when Democrats won in November 2018, that's when he approached then Mayor Weaver asking, can you get this guy to back off? And I don't know, I go by common sense. I kind of learned that, Charlie's one of my journalistic heroes. If you got nothing to hide, why are you asking the mayor of Flint to get him to back down? What are you so worried about? Things being investigated. I also think another element that I hope the story now makes sense to Flint residents. A lot of Flint residents, Michigan taxpayers are wondering, why in the world is Governor Snyder charging us $8.5 million for his criminal defense fees if he's not under investigation? Well, I think this story shows he was under investigation, and that's why.
God damn it. Okay, so I want to ask.
Let me weigh this in to you. I think great reporting, Jordan. Certainly appreciate that. But at the end of the day, while all this question of criminalization continues to cloud the people in Flint still are without quality water and a solution to a problem that has spanned now, 6 years?
Yep. I think that's the most devastating part of the story. And I'm really appreciative Vice ran it, because in the story, we also show, didn't get a lot of attention, but Snyder's environmental department manipulated the testing too. So, we really don't know without credible testing. There's no way to know what in the world they are drinking right now, because Snyder shut down those water pods and declared mission accomplished 2 years ago. But they were flushing residents' water lines before taking the test, which is totally against EPA regulations. And common sense, again, how could those lead levels drop so quickly if they didn't touch the main pipes in the streets? They didn't touch the interior plumbing. It's not like that water just skipped over the main pipes and only damaged the service lines. And I've been to Flint.
Uh-oh.
I meet people that are still getting rashes from that water. I meet people that are still losing hair.
Well, let's also do this, Jordan. I mean, we know under Weaver, under the Democrats, they failed to test to the EPA standards last year. They're in violation. It's
Correct.
all of these fucking people. You sent it to me. I got it from somebody else today. Apparently, I'm no longer on the Attorney General's email list or the prosecutor, but let me give the statement, because it's great. It's from Fadwa Hamoud. What is her title again? The Inspector General? Solicitor General. And Kim Worthy, the Wayne County prosecutor, quote, "As we approach 6 years since the water switch in Flint, we must remember the ongoing struggle of the people of Flint." You're right. "And their resiliency in the face of a man-made disaster that will span generations. But they did not volunteer to serve as a cautionary tale of government gone wrong. This fate was imposed on," first of all, how do we even know that? Since they're not done with their investigation. Anyway, "This fate was imposed on them by a series of actions and inactions that created the historic injustice of the Flint water crisis from the outset. Our team committed to a complete investigation of the Flint water crisis using all investigative means at our disposal. We committed to professional prosecution of anyone criminally responsible for this man-made crisis and the resulting death, injury, and trauma experienced by the people of Flint. Despite the challenges posed by our state by the COVID-19 pandemic, the current state of emergency will not prevent us from pursuing justice. April 25th, 2014 is a significant date in the history of Flint. However, we want to correct the misconception that April 25th, 2020 is the deadline to bring charges against those who may be criminally liable. Criminal statutes of limitations vary depending on offense and the date of the alleged criminal act. Though we cannot comment on the specifics of our investigation, we remain on track and we are delivering our commitment to the people of Flint." Are they, Jordan?
Well, all I can tell you is Michigan law for the felony misconduct in office is 6 years. Yes, there are different statutes for different crimes, but remember, most of the charges were misconduct in office, not manslaughter. Stephen Bush, Leanne Schechter-Smith. So they're doing kind of a voodoo by words here, but the statute for misconduct in office is next week. Lawmakers have called to extend it. And listen, I don't want to go to a public war with the Attorney General, but I will say,
I'll do it.
Words are just words. Actions speak louder than words. I still have no explanation from the Attorney General why these charges were dropped. If you didn't like Todd Flood or you didn't like his investigation, sure, you have the right to start over again, but still no explanation.
Here's my problem, Jordan. Before she was even the Democratic nominee for Attorney General, she announced she was going to fire the whole team without looking at one page.
Correct.
I've spent 5 years doing this. You know what I mean? I know what's going on, and I'm not accusing anybody of being a criminal here, but you have the drain commissioner up there to put the deal together. The bond attorney who represented Flint and Genesee County and the KWA. He's now the CFO for Detroit. You know what I mean? Come on. Justice for Flint.
And I don't want to get too in the weeds, Charlie, but the story also reveals we got transcripts of Andy Dillon, the former treasurer with Todd Flood. He said, I told him from the beginning, I'm not approving Flint going on the KWA if they are anything other than a customer. That he was told by Jeff Wright that Flint will not be borrowing
the drain
money.
commissioner.
Correct.
Yes.
So there was a lot of lies told here and zero accountability.
Charlie, let me ask one question.
Yep.
Maybe it's either you or Jordan, but during the campaign, Governor Whitmer did mention or that Flint was still on her radar. Where does this fall in the current on the current governor's agenda? I mean, I haven't heard any mention from the governor's office about it. Have you, Jordan?
Let's just say a lot was cut from the story so that it wouldn't be 20,000 words. So part 2 will get into her.
Okay.
But listen, Governor Whitmer, she promised as governor-elect that she was going to reopen those water pods. Hasn't happened. And Mayor Weaver is on the record saying that when she was asking, the Mayor Weaver was very excited. Democrats coming in, maybe better relations than Governor Snyder. And Governor Whitmer, from our reporting, indicates that she basically threw up her hands and told Mayor Weaver, sorry, can't help you, can't get any money. Like she was powerless in, quote unquote, the legislature has Flint fatigue. Well, you're the governor. So if it was a priority to you, you could have made it, a fight for that money for Flint. So those water pods are not open that Governor Whitmer promised. And according to Mayor Weaver, she told Mayor Weaver, the legislature has Flint fatigue and I can't get you any more money.
Wow.
Did you you didn't get an interview with the governor about this, did you?
No, I mean,
did you get an interview with Nessel?
Oh no.
What
Actually,
about Hamoud?
Interestingly, they keep telling me that Nessel is not involved with the criminal investigation.
Right. Okay, so I moved to the next one. Hamoud, See, here's the thing.
And Charlie, you should know, I've met with Solicitor General Hamoud and I've met with investigators. I'm the one who brought them some of this. I'm a journalist.
But you notice what happens here? Here's the thing. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican or a Democrat, male or female, black or white. You go to some people that have some real questions. What's going on in this state is you can appear on a comedy show or a morning talk show, but that doesn't get us answers when real people know real questions. And probably even Snyder sat for an interview with me during the middle of this and took his ass beating.
Yeah.
You get it on the record where he's going to deny it. Okay, you're going to deny it. But we know this is not good government. This is fucking Twitter. This is no way to run it. So we want some justice.
And let me tell you, I mean, straight up, former prosecutor said to me, the Snyder administration presided over a criminal cover-up similar to organized crime. That's a quote from them.
Wow.
And Attorney General Nessel, she has all this information. Hopefully, I'll be happy to have egg on my face. But as of now, I don't see any hints that broader charges are coming. And I really, one would have to wonder, Charlie, that, you just totally burned down 3 years of an investigation from a Republican attorney general or a Republican special prosecutor. You didn't, like you said already, like Andy Arena said, no real debriefing, no information gathering on what was done. And from what I've seen and what I've heard from people who have been spoken to by Solicitor General Hamoud, been interviewed since, I get an impression that they don't know what they're doing, is the impression.
Ooh.
That's not my opinion. That's not my opinion. That's people who have been interviewed by them.
And look here, man, let's just do this because we're professionals. Like I want Flint to know, we didn't quit on you. It was a really thorough piece you did. And even if you know a bunch of it like I do, it reminds you and it lays it out clearly. The local media, the big press, the 2 newspapers and the 3 TV stations, nobody's even mentioned this. Yes. Not even mentioned it. This isn't some little fly-by-night alt weekly here. This is a professional. You worked for NBC News, did you not?
I used to work for MSNBC, yeah.
Fox?
Used to work for Fox, MSNBC, yeah.
We're not clowns, man.
I've been doing this for a decade.
Right on.
And I will say, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I mean, I've been to Flint 15 times, mostly on my dime, not the networks I've reported for. It's baffling to me. I mean, if you're a journalist, this is like a juicy steak, this kind of corruption. This could make your career if that's of interest to you. The corruption, most of these people are lazy in their corruption because they don't expect any journalists to follow up. But I mean, the Free Press passed on this story. They're not covering it. The Flint Journal is still writing press releases from the state. Detroit News. I mean, I could go down the list. It's really a disservice to the people of Flint. And it's not just Flint. If there's no accountability here, don't think this can't come to a town near you soon, wherever you're watching from. Because if the government's never held accountable for poisoning people and then leaving them to die, they'll do it somewhere else.
Well said, man. And I'm just going to remind everybody, you lost money doing this. This was a labor of love.
Yes.
You got poor, not rich doing this. So thank you on behalf of John Q. Public. What does that say there, Mark?
I just didn't know, Jordan, if you wanted to plug it. I know you have a website, Status Quo.
Yeah, so we reported this for Vice, but we're actually, it's one of those things. We kind of gathered this and then, Vice obtained. So our outlet is Status Quo, a coup d'etat of the status quo. You can find us on youtube.com/Status Quo. That's Status COUP.
Twitter.
All right, man.
Twitter,
we'll post it. Thanks for the hard work, man.
At Status Quo. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
It is
that was good, Charlie. That was great.
It's a great article.
It's a great article. It's long, and it's not a comic book. So read it, sit down, read it thoroughly. It lays it out. I just remember getting on it and just started tracing the water, and then ending up at the water treatment plant and say, we start there. The biggest thing, where it actually happened. If you guys read Jordan's article, they were so cheap, they wouldn't even spend $100 a day to put the anti-corrosive chemicals in there. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The reason was, it's not the $100. It's that the plant was so old that there was no place to put the chemicals in. See, it was built in 1960, and they didn't put that stuff in 1960. So you'd have to have guys pouring bags of fertilizer over the tanks. Get
Charlie,
it?
I want to know what happened when Snyder made a commitment to drinking the water. Do you remember when he stood up and they said, "Would you let your grant?" And it's just like, okay, so what happened? Nobody ever asked what happened to that. I know
he stopped doing it. He flew to Germany.
Exactly, and he said when he came back, and that was the end of the discussion. I mean, those are small things, but people, he said that to try to validate that the water was fine, but everybody just kind of let him off the hooks. Like, dude, if you said you were going to drink the water, drink the water. He hasn't.
Well, Obama came in and drank the water too.
Yeah, he
did. Fake cough and shit, So we all know this is way, way bigger than.
Yeah, but people are dying as a result, Charlie. That's not. That's not cool.
That's well chronicled in the article as well, right? Okay, let me take care of some business here, and then we're going to have Brian Pannebecker from the Auto Workers for Trump 2020.
He's been very patient. He's been very patient.
Oh yeah. I'm assuming he's I don't know. Hey,
he's got great posture too. Doesn't he have great posture?
Keep him muted, but pop him up. Check this out. For those of you listening, now look at he's smiling big. He got his big chops. He got his deplorable Lives Matter shirt on, and behind him is Auto Workers for Trump 2020. I mean, this guy. But he's a friend of the show. He's legit, and he took a whole caravan up there. But before we do that, let me remind you that David Hall and Hall Financial care about the community. We support them. They support us. That's why the team at Hall Financial is working from home around the clock to help people save money by refinancing. It's a great time to look at your options, and that's why so many people are refinancing right now. If you haven't refinanced in the last year, Hall Financial is here to help. Now's the time to lower your monthly payments and keep some extra money in your pocket as we go through these turbulent times. And by refinancing, you can probably skip up to 2 payments.
Wow.
So why not see if you can save some money or cut down your term? If you're worried about coronavirus, don't. Homes, dig this. Homes can be appraised without someone stepping foot inside your house. Appraisers are doing drive-by appraisals. I kid you not. Okay? Hall Financial Service is the fastest in the business. That's why they've received nearly 1,500 five-star reviews from Michigan homeowners. Go to their webpage and click on the logo and get started, or call 248-308-5000. Hall Financial, lower payments, better options, more personal attention. Mark, what is the website? DavidHallMortgage.com?
Yep, I believe yours is No BS News. Let me check it really quick.
No, we don't do that because then they check to see if anybody's. They don't give me that.
Okay.
David Hall Mortgage, right?
It's
not on here.
There's a link on your. Yeah, it is DavidHallMortgage.com. There's a link on your website too. That makes it even easier.
Because I go there all the time and notice it. I'm always on my website going, wow, what a great show.
I don't know if I believe
NMLS number 1467435. Now, my favorite redneck, Brian Pannebecker. What's up, brother?
Hang on.
Gotta unmute him. Let me try that again. We'll cut that out in post.
Oh.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Charlie?
Good, man. Now, you took a caravan. Mark, you do it. Set the stage of what went on this week in Lansing.
Well, it was Operation Gridlock. The purpose was to show up to, kind of protest the governor's stay-home order and get everybody back to working. And me personally, watching it, I think there's some valid argument there, although I did feel that maybe it turned into a little bit of a circus.
Couple thousand people. Brian, you took 50 cars of people up there, didn't you?
Well, Charlie, my Auto Workers for Trump group met in Sterling Heights right on Van Dyke. We had between 25 and 30 cars that left from Sterling Heights. We drove to Livonia and met with Rob Cordes, the owner of the Trump Unity Bridge. He had 40 or 45 vehicles there in the parking lot of his store. So when we left there, we were probably at 60 or 70 vehicles. Ooh. We drove to Howell and picked up 80 or 90 more vehicles, cement trucks, dump trucks, landscape pickup trucks with trailers. So by the time we pulled into Lansing, we probably had close to 200 vehicles in our convoy.
Wow.
Jesus, man. You went to every cracker box in eastern Michigan. You went to Sterling Heights, Livonia, Howell. Damn, dude. So look, you weren't up there protesting that. You're going to retire pretty soon. That was a Trump rally, wasn't it, for you?
No, that was a protest against Gretchen Whitmer. It really had nothing to do with promoting President Trump, but it just so happens that most of the people that don't like to see our liberties taken away also support President Trump. And he is very outspoken about what Gretchen Whitmer has done. Charlie, you know as well as I do, and you've got to agree with me on this. Lowe's and Home Depot are open, but when you go into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, you can't walk down certain aisles of that store to buy gardening equipment. It's insanity. So Gretchen Whitmer's on a power trip. You know it as much as I do, and we're both probably on the same page on that issue.
Well, I would say this, bro. I said to government, the problem with Whitmer is everything's been so confused and sort of half managed and then mismanaged and going, you let the primary happen and people mix and then we have an explosion. You don't hold business to account or close the factory floors right away. It's a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit. So nothing. I think we all could have dug it if it was consistent from the beginning. We need to do this now. But like you said, I think it's piece by piece. Now you can't go get seeds, but you can get plumbing supplies. I don't know what 70% of the people are saying she's managed this very well, because the things she's done very well, I think she's followed the governor of Ohio, and they have 4 times less of these cases than we do. Something's terribly wrong. The response to the jails, the prisons. That's my opinion.
Charlie, if there's a poll out there that says 70% of Michigan residents think she's done a good job of managing this, that's insanity. Well, fake news, that's fake news. I mean, that's the definition of fake news. And I read Beth LeBlanc in the Detroit News wrote an article, it was in yesterday's paper, that said there were several thousand, 4,000 was, I think, the number that they used in the news, people that went to Lansing. Well, I would conservatively say there were 10,000 people there. And I know from my personal experience, I tried to get in from 4 or 5 different main roads into downtown Lansing, and they were backed up for a mile outside of the downtown area. So finally, I just had to park, put on my gloves, put on my N95 mask, and I walked, and I had it on maps, so I know it was 0.8 of a mile. That was the closest I could get. And I walked. I was on the phone with Charlie Langton. He was out in front of the Lansing Capitol, and I walked to him to do an interview. And by the time I got there, he had left. He had gone to do something else on another assignment. So it was close to a mile traffic backup on every main road leading into downtown.
Are you telling me Charlie Langton's ordering interviews? Come to me?
He didn't order it, but he was out in front of the Capitol. I'm sure you saw it. And I was texting back and forth with him. And he said, hey, if you can get down here, there's 600 or 700 people that are out of their vehicles. So I put on my gloves and my N95 mask, and I walked to the Capitol. And when I got there, there were 500 or 600 people on foot. But they were not any closer to each other than the people in Kroger. When I go to pick up my weekly groceries, I didn't get any closer to anybody than I did at Kroger. So all the media outlets that are saying they were disregarding the governor's social distancing rules are just misleading people, because
Mark,
I will say,
let me do this. I got to do this real quick. This is the weirdest way to do a group thing, because
I know.
Off camera, and then when you're listening, everybody's raising their hands.
School.
It's like, just fucking yell, man.
We're trying not to be rude, Charlie.
It's Brian. It's cool. Just jump
Go ahead.
Well,
I'm ready to mix it up.
I will say, so kind of echoing what you said, Charlie, I do think Whitmer's intentions were good in her stay-at-home order. I think it just, like a lot of things with government, the intention's good. Maybe the way it operates doesn't operate, because different things for different people. But what I wanted to ask you, Brian, and I do think Charlie Langdon on his report did express how many people were there. He said by 9 o'clock, it was supposed to start at noon. By 9 o'clock, everything was shut down. He wouldn't have gotten in. But what I wanted to ask you, you make a great point. I thoroughly agree with you about the parts of Home Depot and Lowe's being shut down is ludicrous, because I personally went to 2 stores to get the things I needed because I couldn't go to Home Depot. So you make a valid point there. However, I wanted to get your opinion on, there's people there. There was a Nazi flag. There was a
Confederate flag.
Stars and Bars. There were people with guns. Do you think that aspect of it maybe lessens that argument, the legitimate argument about restarting?
No, it has nothing to do with it. If I wanted to sabotage some type of liberal progressive gathering or a rally, I could show up there and act like I was part of their group with a KKK suit on, because we all know that's where the KKK originated, was the Democrat Party. Senator Robert Byrd was a KKK member, and he was the leader, the Senate Majority Leader.
Can you just get to the point?
For the Democrats. So the point is, some redneck drove by in a pickup truck, and I saw that. There's no denying it. He drives by with a Confederate flag in the back of his pickup truck, and all of a sudden everybody wants to say, oh, those Trump supporters, they're all racist KKK members.
But didn't you say you stopped and picked up a group in Howell? Isn't that where the heart of the KKK lies for Michigan? I mean, you picked up some supporters in Howell. How do you separate, the principles of what the group stands for? I don't get it.
Well, I'll answer that. Let me do it, Brian, because you're talking, Karen, from 1930, or like the last picture.
No, we're not.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because I'm the guy that drove with the Klan in North Carolina. Like the point, I agree with Brian here. I didn't go to it. I was busy trying to be proactive down here, but I saw the same picture, the same damn flag everywhere, right? And now you have to talk about an asshole with his Dixie flag or a swastika, right? That doesn't mean that the plumber that went there, who's losing his home, is a Nazi. Or if you from Howell,
Charlie, let me, I'm probably the master of bad analogies, but let me give you another example here. And the media they've been feasting on this ever since President Trump did it. Down in South Carolina, when there was that rally. The progressives wanted to tear down all the statues of Robert E. Lee and anybody that was on the Confederate side back in the time of the Civil War. President Trump made the foolish mistake of saying there were some good people there on each side. Well, of course, President Trump wasn't talking about the handful of white supremacists that, were despicable, and we all condemn that, those kind of people. He was talking about the people who wanted to preserve those statues as part of history. You can't rewrite history. Robert E. Lee was a general in the Civil War for the South. So he wanted to say there were some people there who had legitimate concerns about trying to rewrite history, and tearing down all these old statues wasn't going to do any good. So the media takes that and runs with it, and they're still running with it to this day.
Well, what he's got to do, look, I get it. I do. I totally get it. What he's got to do is better think before he starts.
Of course, but you guys have a role to play too, Charlie. You and Karen and Mark can't sit here and say, well, we saw a pickup truck drive by and he had a Confederate flag.
Did you see me do that?
No, but I'm just saying you can't. You can't.
I'll tell you what.
That's not legitimate journalism.
I've been around Antifa. Those guys are fucked up. That's far left.
Charlie, I was at that rally in Lansing, and I'm going to tell you, those people were polite. They were respectful. They were, for the most part, even the people that were on foot were respecting the governor's social distancing rules, and the police were all over the place. They were on bikes, and every time they went by the Trump Unity Bridge, we've got a loud speaker system on that. And Rob Cordes, the owner, would say, here comes the good people from law enforcement. We respect them. We thank them for the good job they're doing. And they were very friendly towards us. We were very respectful towards them.
That's why we had having you on, man, because we respect you, your point of view, and you're a part of our community.
Truth. Charlie, I will tell the truth.
No.
And I know you're all about the truth.
Fake news. You put fake news on your Facebook, so I'm going to have to fix you on the fake news. Ready?
I won't put it on if it's on.
No. Hear me. You did fake news on your Facebook page. I'm going to tell you what it was. This wasn't the best economy in history. It wasn't as good as the 90s, and it wasn't as good as the 80s in terms of growth. It wasn't. Unemployment, right? You say, like, for minorities, it was an all-time low. Absolutely not, because those who dropped out of the workforce was at there were more people working in 13 than now. So I think what we saw with Corona was the house of cards, both Democrat and Republican and big business created. Borrow. Something triggered the collapse of the debt because people can't pay it. Wasn't the greatest economy ever. I'm an economist. I studied it, and I stayed up very late doing my own individual research, the Federal Reserves. No, bro. Now it's the time for the real people, because we're not getting anything.
Charlie, I'm going to beg to differ with you, and we can debate that at length some other time.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, I've been working in the auto industry for well over 30 years, 11 years with Chrysler Corporation, and now almost 25 years with Ford Motor Company. I was corporate when I was at Chrysler. I worked at 11 different Chrysler plants, the old Chrysler, before they were owned by any foreign entities. And I got to see a lot of different plants from the late 70s all the way through until now. And I'm telling you, we were rocking and rolling. I was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day when I got laid off on March 24th. Things were great. And I will dispute your claim that it wasn't the best economy ever.
It wasn't. Well, look, that's okay. Maybe it was for you. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
We were rocking and rolling on debt.
The statistics that I've read are that black unemployment among women, unemployment above Asian Americans, were all at record lows.
But you're reading what you want. You know what labor participation rate means?
Yes, I do.
That thing was higher in 2013. No, bro. Wealth disappeared. Real wages really didn't do anything. It's not Trump. It's not Obama. It's not Bush. It's not Clinton. It's not Reagan. It's all of us.
With you some other time, but we're getting off into the weeds now. You wanted
he's running the show.
You wanted to talk to me about what happened at that rally, and I'm telling you, the media just cannot misrepresent the people that were there. They were polite. They were law-abiding. We did not have any problems.
Brian, was it a rally or a protest? You just referred to it as a rally, and I know a lot of people are really annoyed that COVID, and I think there's a legitimate argument about cure versus, the pandemic, but it has become political, and it's very annoying that it has become political because I have plenty of...
a little disingenuous here. You can use the term protest if you want. You can use the term rally. We were rallying out in front of the Capitol to send a message to Gretchen Whitmer. So you can call it a protest rally. You can call it a protest. You can call it a rally. Call it whatever you want. But again, you're trying to mislead people by what you're saying.
No, listen, stop it.
I'm not trying to mislead anyone.
I thought this was
he's asking a question.
Let's not have any BS. It was a protest rally. It was a protest rally.
Do you think
we're sending Gretchen Whitmer a message, and I think we succeeded?
Is the coronavirus, is it political? Is it a political argument, the coronavirus?
Well, listen, here's why I was there, Mark. In 1755...
Wait a minute, you didn't answer his question, no.
I'm going to answer it with a quote from Ben Franklin. In 1755, Charlie, he wrote a letter to the governor of then Pennsylvania, back when, the colonies were still being ruled by Great Britain. And he said, those that would give up liberty, essential liberties, to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And that's why I was in Lansing. Because I will not give up my liberty for a little temporary safety.
Well, here's what you're going to do, man. Like, as long, you were being proper and protecting others, wearing your gloves and your mask. I got no beef. I don't got no beef. That's why I called you. I don't got beef. I know what country I live in, man. I'm glad you're in it. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I figure we're on the same side, Charlie. So, I'm just trying to clarify.
100%.
The people that were there were standing up for your liberty, Karen's liberty, Mark's liberty, all of our liberty. We can't give up our liberty just to get a little, especially when we have somebody like Gretchen Whitmer telling us what aisles we can go down in stores. It's gotten way out of hand.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, man. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brian.
See you, Brian.
Bye-bye, Karen.
Bye.
I am going to
puke.
I'm still going to follow the government order on this, baby. You know what I mean?
I understand, and I do. I understand the stay at home, the 6 foot distancing. I get that, but dare I say it, I do agree that if a store is open, there is not a right to say what we can and cannot buy. Amen. I do agree with that.
Amen.
I wanted to paint a wall. I can't buy a can of paint. I had to pay twice as much for fertilizer to be delivered to the house because our landscapers can't come. I get that. So on that one, I do agree. And let me say this because I'm looking at some of the comments. I didn't say the whole entire city of Howell was affiliated with the KKK. So listen carefully. My dad used to have a business in Howell, so that's not the case. So let's tone that down, attack me for something else. That's not true. I didn't.
Well, it's just fun, Karen. There's something to yell at. I know you didn't say it.
It's all good. Bring it on. It's all good.
Karen's a woman of the world. Look at that. Karen's father.
Don't go there, Charlie. We'll talk about that another day. I don't want to get into that.
Wow.
Because that's not the topic. But what I'm saying is that, never mind. Just, people hear what they want to hear. If you're going to criticize me, if you're going to criticize Charlie, criticize us for fact. Go back, listen to it. And whether it was this year or 10 years ago, Howell was commonly known because there was a cluster. Yes. So that's what I was saying. I didn't say
I know.
I wasn't saying everybody in Howell is a Klansman.
And in the way we do it, like I was trying to help you make that point, and then we fired everybody up.
Yeah, everybody's all listening.
I understand what you were saying because everybody says it.
It's all
it's not really true. It's just that's the way that goes.
I know.
I could really sense, and rightfully so, Brian's anger and how the the rally/protest was covered, because that's what's going to get eyeballs, though. That's
true.
Some of that's on the media. I think a lot of it's on the consumers of media, because that's what they want to see. And I don't know how you balance that out.
I'm going to tell you what, dude. I called Brian after I saw it, because, like, again, I was running around I didn't stay at home. I'm trying to deliver masks and gloves to, frontline workers, people like that. I came home and looked at it, and I knew right away probably how Brian felt, and, good, decent, respectable neighbors of ours. Like, wait, I saw the same fucking Dixie flag.
Yeah.
The same one.
But,
right? The same picture of the guy running for Congress with the whatever. And I'm like, that's what it's going to be.
But just like if it bleeds, it leads. It's almost like if there's a clown, he's going to be in front of the camera. I mean, I don't know where the anger always falls on the media, but I don't know where the anger then falls on the consumer of the media, or maybe even the actual clown themselves. Because it became the punchline on all the late night shows, which, it ruins all the valid arguments of her stay-at-home order. You can do this, you can't do that. You can still buy alcohol. You can buy lottery tickets. I mean, I'm sure it was well-intended. It's been very confusing for a lot of people, and it's a big head-scratcher.
But like you said, Mark, I mean, this pandemic, people's lives, I mean, it's nothing to politicize. And I'm not saying this for or against anybody, but we are seeing our leadership at the state and the city level. It's like everything's an audition for a potential White House appointment.
Without a doubt.
I mean, and there's no time for that right now. I mean, you do have people struggling. You've got people trying to figure out what to do next. Like Charlie said before we went on, people can't put their hands on $400 or $1,000. And people do want to work, but they don't want going to work to be a death sentence. Yeah. People, so, I mean, there's a lot going on now. There's no time for politicizing. There's no time.
But you're going to see that. It's the theater of leadership, and the battle. The next argument is going to be, as Brian so eloquently put it, liberty versus people's health and safety. And that's, that's a very tough argument.
Let's do this too. Let's remember what Jordan said before Brian, which is, it doesn't matter what your party affiliation is. Like, the real stuff for we real people isn't getting done, and it's so obvious that it needs to be. Okay, so this, I respect Brian a lot, because if you can't do it to us in a coherent way and give us a coherent strategy, and I know we've never been through this, but half measures and keep changing it starts to drive people mad, and we don't have money. Yep. Plus, I do love my liberty. I'm not staying at home.
I don't care. I'm
run
good.
around with a flag and breathe on people.
I would like to go to TJ Maxx, though, and they're closed. But other than that, I'm good. I mean, this is okay. I think it's really a time for a reset. I mean, this is exposing, just like when we talked to Dr. Vitti about the school being the sole source of nutrition for so many kids. I mean, we need to really take a hard look at who we are and how we've been doing things, and figure out how to do them differently and better when all this is over, if in fact it's ever over. Our normal is what got us into this, and we need to figure out how to do it.
Watch that, which is you and Brian have some things you agree with, right? Vitti and I have some things we agree with. You and I adore each other. Like, it must be us. I refuse to cut people out. I want to hear them. Those are the people I appreciate.
I never have a problem with someone who disagrees with me, and I don't dislike people who disagree with me. That's not the basis of disrespect or disagreement. It's just not. I mean, I welcome a difference of opinion and respect a difference of opinion, as long as that difference of opinion is respectful. I'm good. We don't have to see eye to eye.
What I'm saying is, no, we actually found things that we agree with. We're so busy concentrating on what we don't agree.
Right.
That the foundation for a society is what we do agree on. We all do agree in liberty. We all do agree that children shouldn't starve. We agree on these things. So how do we get there is what we disagree on, and that's fine as long as we have some basic foundation, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now,
I agree, Charlie.
Here's what I'm working on. This is the no bullshit news. This is where, get ready, media, take out your pens. Here's what you're not getting that you've either gotten or you're going to get from me. Number one, I've been writing about the Wayne County Jail. The number of infected employees in a 700-person department is now 170.
Wow.
There is no cluster in a public entity bigger than this in America that I know of. They're not even really testing the inmates. Number two, both head doctors, the head of medicine, right, and the health director at the Wayne County Jail died of COVID. It wasn't reported and it wasn't put out by the sheriff's department. That's a national story that almost nobody wants to pay attention to. That's number two. The mayor, and you're going to be hearing from me next week, Mr. Mayor. You cut the part-time. He's the only guy in America, a politician, that's announced layoffs. You cut the part-time people, the guys boarding up your houses. You cut the lowest by 90%. You cut the bureaucracy by 20%. And then anybody making over $125,000 a year took a, get ready for this, a 5% cut.
Right.
Remember, we did on our show and have written that you have 144 appointees making on average $142,000 a year, which for 140 people is 1% of the whole budget.
Yep.
And that's what you came up with. The police are going to take a pay cut because they were promised a 2.5% raise. And since bankruptcy, they've lost money. They've lost money. When you were in the administration, everybody took a 10% cut.
Everybody.
Yep. What is this rat ass?
I don't know. I didn't get that. And, to me, it's almost a microcosm of what we're seeing across America. It's like the people, the least of those bear the greatest burden. That's not how you rebuild a city. But Charlie, this is what I want to throw out there. The pension obligation payment that's coming due. Just let me throw that out there. Let's not forget about that. That's $220 million, what, in 2 years, 3 years? So, I mean, this is that bubble that has burst that we've been talking about for a long time.
Okay, ready for this? Mark, you listening?
Yep.
It was downstairs, but, it's been reported everywhere, including locally, that crime across the world is down since the world has been locked in, right?
Sure.
Rio de Janeiro and Johannesburg, South Africa, and Mexico City, Chicago, New York. Well, only here in the No Bullshit News Hour, I have your statistics for Detroit. March 10th through April 16th of last year, this was no lockdown, 20 homicides and 64 shootings. The same period this year during the lockdown, 22 homicides and 95 shootings. That means murder is up 10%. And non-fatal shootings are up 50% in a lockdown. Now, I know what you'll say. Well, people are locked up, they get crazy, they drink. Okay. Year to date, January through today, last year to this year, homicides are up 40% and shootings are up 33%. My point is, we've lost control of the city. It's the brokest place. The superintendent of the schools told you 10% of the kids can access the freaking internet. 100,000 meals are coming through the schools from us. Mm-hmm. And the only way to distribute them is through the schools. We've got an issue in our capital city. And what Brian's telling you is that starting to bleed out into places like Howell, like Livonia, like Sterling Heights. The real fear here amongst the middle class and the working class of any color is you will become the black ghetto. And it's a very scary thing. Think now how the good people are forced to live. This is what we need to focus on. This is how we can learn.
But Charlie, people have to want to, and they've got to be honest about that fear and honest about the realities that we're now all being forced to look at. I mean, seriously, we do. We can't pretend like this is something other than what it really is. And that's what you just laid out.
Here it is. Here it is, Karen. No bullshit. Now, Mark, if you could, I want to do some good news.
Yes.
Okay. Here's some good news. Grace Dietrich a Navy veteran took her time and sewed masks. Carrie Roberts' house took her own money and ordered from China N95s, gloves. These two women are the finest amongst us. Instead of sitting there bitching, they did stuff. And I wrote a little piece on Facebook about the insanity at Sinai Grace, right? The emergency room. Mm-hmm. CNN comes in, everybody comes in, and now we got pictures of dead bodies, but nothing good came out of it. Not, we got to get it out so everybody knows so we can help them. God bless these people. But I can't see it. But here's the picture.
It's up there.
Yeah, what's up?
Of the people that got equipment, knowing somebody cares about them. And I say, bravo. That's
Charlie,
good.
Let me say this. I'm going to take a little editorial position here. You have to be thanked, too, because you very quietly been getting those masks. You've been getting those gloves. You've been getting that PPE, and you've been quietly passing it out because you know that this is what people on the front line need. So I'm not a large group, but I'm going to tell you thank you. And I want people to know that that's what you've been doing quietly. You didn't call the media. You didn't take a picture. You didn't do any of that stuff. You've been doing it so much to the point that we were all concerned about you being exposed to it. So thank you for doing what you've done as well.
You're welcome. But I can't do the stories knowing what's going on at Sinai Grace, or what's going on at the county jail, or what's going on with our police officers, because I love them very much, and write a story and disappear. Like, it's just not in my nature. Like, there's got to be something that we can do to fill the void with an incompetent government. I'm sorry. If I was in government, I would know exactly what we need to do with that jail, and I will give the county some credit for taking some minimum steps. But when you release 500 people from the jail back into the community and put them on buses, knowing that your deputies are infected like this is a fucking outrage. So, number 2, my car broke down. My caddy.
No.
Something weird went on, right? I called Brute, my guy Brute, the on-call mechanic. This guy's a master mechanic. Is the picture up?
Yes, it will be. Yep.
Oh, okay, this is Brute laying on my motor block in the middle of Lafayette. We just jacked up the car. He was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask. We were socially distancing, which guys don't do when they're working on cars. It's very weird. But it looks like I hit him.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you sent the picture. I'm like, oh, no. What
He
if
just
we have to bail Charlie
Joey
out?
looked in the trunk. That's how he looks under the hood.
Exactly. The manager Joy's in the trunk and Brute's on the motor block. That's a 425, so you can sleep on that motherfucker.
Did he fix it?
So, yeah, man. You know what happened? Is there's a ground, right? You have one ground goes to your motor, and one that goes to your chassis, your body. Somehow it rattled off. So it took a couple of hours to figure out a wire shook loose.
Wow.
But it's running like a top. Brute, big ups, man. Thanks. A shout out to Ferndale Radiator, Mel. Hope you're doing good, brother. And I guess I should say, ending this, that we'll be okay. I mean, we will. We'll be okay. And I'm thinking about Brian, and I want to read a quote. I'm reading a lot. There's a quote from H.L. Mencken, a great American writer, a great American thinker, early to mid 20th century. He wrote this: "There comes a time when every normal person is tempting to spit on his hands, haul up the black flag, and begin slitting throats. So when you don't do that, we're not there. We're not there, right? But I understand your frustration. Stick together. If you're hungry, hit me up on Facebook Messenger. I got some people delivering meals. I don't got a million of them, but somebody, if you're really stuck and you got kids, something like that, an old person, okay, we'll get you something. Don't know how, but we'll get it to you, and we'll keep on for you. And remember, try to love one another. And speaking of black flag,
TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
We're gonna have a TV party tonight!
Alright!
We're gonna have a TV party, alright!
Tonight! We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight.
Alright!
We'll pass out on the couch. Alright!
Tonight! We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't wanna know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows.
That's incredible!
History Blue, Dallas, Friday.
We sit glued to the TV set all night.
And every night.
Why go into the outside world at all?
It's such a fright. We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
TV news shows what it's like out there.
It's a scare.
You can go out if you want.
We wouldn't dare. We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't want to know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows.
Saturday Night Live,
Monday Night Football, Jefferson, Vegas.
I wouldn't be without my TV for a day.
Or even a minute.
Don't even bother to use my brain anymore.
There's nothing left in it. We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Hey, wait a minute. My TV doesn't work.